Hello! Today I'm going to be showing you how you can export and update your Shopify tracking numbers for existing orders in bulk using the Matrixify app. So let's get started. Here I am in my Shopify admin, and these are the 3 orders that I'm going to be adding tracking to or updating tracking for. So this tutorial will be showing you how you can update existing fulfillments for your orders, which means orders that are already fulfilled. If you would also like to fulfill your orders, then I'll leave a link in the description of this video to the tutorial that will show you how to also fulfill your orders, as well as adding tracking and other fulfillment data. However, this tutorial will be showing you how you can update existing fulfillments for your orders. And these are the 3 orders that we're going to be looking at today. So as the first step, you need to head to the Matrixify app, which is what we're going to be doing now. Once in the Matrixify app, you would then need to click on New Export. Once you've done this, you'll be brought to a new export page. And we first need to start off by selecting the format we would like to export in. Now, if you're not exporting a huge amount of data, we do recommend exporting it in the Matrixify Excel format. However, if you are exporting data that would be over the Excel limits, then you would need to export in the Matrixify CSV format. We do recommend exporting it in Excel if possible, as this tends to be a lot easier to work with and a lot less likely to break. So also in my case, I will be exporting it in the Excel format, but generally you can also use whatever you're most comfortable working with. Then moving on to Sheets. Now, as you can see here, I have all of these entities selected, but as we only need to export orders from the Select Sheets drop-down, we would only need to select orders to be exported. So I'll go ahead and do that. And now you'll be able to see that the only entity that will be exported is orders, which is exactly what we're looking for. We then need to go ahead and further refine our export by clicking on the orders drop-down. And here you'll be able to see all of the different column groups we can export for orders. Now, to update existing fulfillments, we only need to select basic columns. We don't need customers, companies. We need to select line type. We do not need line items. We don't need line items product data or refunds or transactions. We do need fulfillment, so keep that selected, and we don't need to export meta fields. Now, you can also select other column groups if you really would want to. However, it's not necessary for this task. It really only is necessary to select basic columns, line type, and fulfillment, as these are the minimum required column groups that we need to update an existing fulfillment for an order. Now we can go in and further refine our export by selecting only the minimum required columns to be exported from each column group. To do so, click on the Basic Columns drop-down, and for basic columns, we really only need ID, name, and command. So in this case, select only ID, name, and command. For the line type group, we can keep all of the columns selected, so go ahead and leave that checked. And the same also goes for fulfillments. The main thing when updating an existing fulfillment, though, is to have the fulfillment ID. This ID is what allows Matrixify to identify which fulfillment for the order is being updated, as an order can have multiple fulfillments. So please make sure this is checked as a main column for the fulfillments column group and any other fulfillment data that you'd want to update. In our case, I'm going to be exporting all of the fulfillment columns regardless. You can then also add a filter to your export, and here are all the filters that you can add to export only specific orders. In our case, we're going to add the filter fulfillment status. This is so that all fulfilled orders are exported, as in our case, we're going to be updating existing fulfillments for our orders. You can also export partially fulfilled orders and update only the fulfilled part of the order. However, in my case, I'm going to be filtering the export for all of the fulfilled orders. So to do so, select the filter fulfillment status and then check the fulfilled checkbox and press add. None of the export options need to be changed. The default ones will work exactly as we need them to. And other than that, you can then go ahead and press export. So now you'll see that your file has exported. We can go ahead and download the exported file by pressing the Download Exported File button. Once the file has been downloaded, click on it to open it so we can start editing our data. So here I am in our exported file. As you can see, the ID, name and command column have been exported, the line type column groups have been exported, and of course our fulfillment columns. We'll go through each column. I'll tell you what needs to be changed and what doesn't need to be changed and what each column means. So starting with ID and name. This is how our orders are identified. Leave them as they are, they do not need to be changed, and this is exactly how Matrixify will find the existing order in your store. Then moving on to the command column. This column tells Matrixify what to do with the order. In our case, we're not going to be creating new orders, but rather updating existing orders. In this case, that then means we need to change the command column value to update instead of new. So we'll go ahead and do that now, and change that for all rows. We do not need to change the row number or top row column. These are purely export only columns and they're there to help you navigate the exported file itself. In our case, we're just going to leave them as they are. You can also go ahead and remove them from the file if you would like to. In my case, I'm going to leave them. Then moving on to line type. Now, the value fulfillment line is the exact value that we want to be seeing for this column. If your exported file contains other line types, such as line item types or shipping lines, discounts, any of that, you can go ahead and remove them from your file, as these are rows of the order that we do not need to be editing at this time. The only rows that we do need to be editing for the order are the fulfillment lines. Make sure that your file only contains fulfillment lines for your orders. Then moving on to fulfillment ID. Now, as mentioned previously, this is how the app knows which fulfillment to update for an order. This column, when updating a fulfillment, should always have a value. This value is a value generated by Shopify itself. So in our case, we can see that the value has been exported, and when imported, this is how the fulfillment will be identified. So leave that as it is as well. Then moving on to fulfillment status. This shows the status of the fulfillment. In our case, the status is success, so leave that as it is. The same goes for created at and updated at. These are actually exported only columns. However, you can also leave them in the file. You can delete them, completely up to you. In my case, just for simplicity's sake, I will remove them, but you can also leave them if you would like. Then we have our other fulfillment columns. So we have the location of the fulfillment, we have tracking company, tracking number, shipment status, so if the fulfillment's delivered or not. And we also have fulfillment tracking URL, as well as fulfillment send receipt. And the fulfillment send receipt column is used to trigger Shopify to send out an email to the customer linked to the order, so that they can receive a notification about any new fulfillments or any updates to existing fulfillments. The column we're going to be looking at today, though, is the column fulfillment tracking number, as our aim is to update tracking numbers for existing fulfillments. Now, as you can see, our first order already has a value for this column. This means that the fulfillment for this order in Shopify already has a tracking number. That looks something like this. Now what I want to do is I want to change this tracking number. To do so, I'm just going to remove this tracking number and add a new tracking number for the order. So I'll just go ahead and add that now. So this would be my new tracking number. As you can see, Excel has automatically changed this to the scientific number. Now, because we're working in Excel, you can definitely leave this as it is. Matrixify will be able to read this number when we re-import it, as long as you import in the Excel format again. I'm now going to go ahead and add tracking numbers for the remaining 2 orders in my file. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And as you can see, I've now added tracking numbers for all 3 of my orders. If you so wish, you can also update other fulfillment columns in this file. So you can add fulfillment tracking URLs. You can change the fulfillment send receipt column. So to trigger a notification email to be sent to your customers about the fulfillment change, you change the value to true. In my case, though, I'm going to leave it as false, as I do not want to notify my customers about any changes that I'm now making. You can also add a shipment status so that you can show that the order's been delivered. You can change the fulfillment location. You can add a tracking company. I'll leave a link to our documentation in the description of this video to show all of the different values you can add for these columns. However, in my case today, I will only be updating the tracking number for my orders. So if all looks good and as it should, we can now go ahead and save our file. So as you can see, I am going to save my file as Orders Tracking Import. Now you can save your file as anything you would want to save your file as, but in my case, I'm going to save it as Order Tracking Import. So go ahead and do that and save your file. And once your file has been saved, we can now head back to the Matrixify app to import the file. Here I am in the Matrixify app, and this is where we're going to be uploading the file that we have just saved. To do so, press Add File, select the file that we've just saved, and either press open or drag and drop it into the app, completely up to you, whichever works best for you. So go ahead and add the file. And once added, you'll be able to see that the uploaded file is analyzing. And once analyzed, you should be able to see that the app has correctly identified the file as orders, as well as correctly identifying the orders count in the file, which in my case would be 3. In your case, that would be however many orders you have in your file. You should also be able to see that all of the columns have been recognized. You will be able to see that row number and top row are a slightly lighter grey colour, and that just means that they're export only and they will be ignored when imported, but that's completely alright. Similar to the export summary sheet that we also had in our file, in this case it will be ignored. This sheet just came from when we exported the orders originally, but it's completely okay to leave it in the file for import. You don't need to change any of the import options, so if all looks good and as it should, you can go ahead and press import. You'll then be able to see the file importing, and once imported, you should see that all of the orders have been updated. And if we head to the orders in our Shopify admin, we'll be able to see that tracking has been added to all 3 of our orders. And if we click on the order, we'll be able to see that the tracking number has been added, as well as for the order that previously had tracking, it's now been changed to a different tracking number, which is exactly what we were looking to do as we were updating the existing fulfillment. And that really would be it. We also offer a great written tutorial on how this can be done as well, which basically goes over all steps that I've just gone through, but in written format. So you can definitely follow this tutorial if easier for you. I'll leave a link in the description of this video to this tutorial as well, so that you can easily get to it. And if you run into any trouble at all, or if you have any questions, queries or concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to us either via Slack, where we have MyBar, our AI assistant, and if necessary, our support team will also jump in to help. You can also reach us via email at support@matrixify.app. We also have an in-app chat where you can ask MyBar, our support assistant, questions directly, and you'll receive answers to your questions instantly. And other than that, that would be it from me today. And that is how to export and update your Shopify tracking numbers for existing orders in bulk using the Matrixify app.